Hello. I don't know how this lighting works, but I'm going to try it anyway. And I only have a few minutes to talk, but I'm also extremely sleep deprived. But anyway, I just thought in the few minutes that I had, I would try to talk about the Brontes, my love-hate relationship with the Brontes. So this is Faith and Books, and I'm Faith. And this is part of my Victober involvement. I haven't really been participating in the way that I think the program anticipates. I'm not power reading Victorian novels, but I'm thinking a lot about Victorian novels, and I'm reading some Victorian literature. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the Brontes. So I read Jane Eyre very young. I remember the copy we had these beautiful woodcut illustrations that were quite spooky and gothic. And I remember just being thrilled with it and really enthralled. Then I read it again in my later teens, and something kind of bothered me about it the second time I read it. And then when I went to college, I had a really wonderful, it was really the highlight of my education, really a wonderful class called Women Authors, taught by Dr. Robert Ducharme. He was really, really good. And he raised questions about Jane Eyre that I think I really absorbed and kind of adopted as my own. And it's an issue that I have with Jane Eyre and also with Wuthering Heights and a little bit with Villette. And I think it comes from, all this is coalescing in my mind from reading that Unmasking of Oscar Wilde and thinking about Oscar Wilde and that fin de siècle, or whatever, the end of century movement of sort of those aesthetes and the decadent movement and all that stuff. And I think that what it comes down to is, as much as I love romanticism, English romanticism, there were two strains of it. And one of those strains, I think, is a healthier, wholesome strain. And the other one, which I think was unfortunately the one that got more popular, kind of led to just a lot of, in the end, tragedy. And it's the reason why I think so many of Oscar Wilde's friends and he himself eventually wound up converting to Catholicism. So one strain of that romanticism was, like, I think of as being represented by Wordsworth. And that was a reaction to the Industrial Revolution, where there were these filthy factories that were exploiting these poor people who were coming out of the countryside, and everything was becoming mechanized, and it was sort of, it was sort of reeling from the Enlightenment and the Age of Reason and everything becoming rational and mechanical. And there was the rise of atheism, like Hume and people like that. And so I think it felt cold and it felt calculating. It was very materialist. And so Wordsworth was sort of a natural reaction to that, to try to recapture the enchantment of nature and of emotion and that sort of thing. And so Wordsworth's poetry and his ilk, they were still trying to sing about the good, the true, and the beautiful. They were trying to recapture it. Whereas the other strain, which I think of as sort of Shelley being like the vanguard of that, was more about heightened emotion and sensationalism